meilleure lunette possible. À cette distance-là, je ne peux pas voir le visage de quelqu'un. Mais il y a des gens qui observent, qui surveillent, qui nous ont signalé que vous n'êtes pas de Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Et ce n'est pas bien, ce n'est pas correct. La Commission voudrait vous inviter à présenter vos excuses à cette Assemblée et de ne pas oser refaire la même chose la fois prochaine. Pourriez-vous présenter vos excuses à l'Assemblée, à la plénière? Ne nous faites pas perdre du temps, présentez simplement les excuses, parce que ce que vous avez fait n'est pas correct.
Your Excellency and honorable participants of this commission, I apologize. I was struggling with the translation, so I had like it to defend us Kenya instead of the national human rights.
Et mettez-vous en contact avec le secrétariat qui vous communiquera ce qu'il y a lieu de faire pour votre cas. Il ne faut pas faire ça. Demandez-nous la parole en tant qu'ONG. Si vous avez des contraintes, que vous voulez partir, parce qu'il y a l'avion, il y a tout ça, nous allons vous donner la parole. On est là pour vous. Mais ne prenez pas la parole au nom d'une autre institution parce que vous engagez alors la responsabilité de cette institution, ce qui n'est pas tout à fait correct. Merci beaucoup. Que le secrétariat daigne bien se rapprocher de notre jeune sœur et qu'il lui dise la procédure à suivre. Vous êtes sur la liste, mais vous êtes sur la liste des ONG, mais un peu plus tard. Il ne faut pas faire ça. C'est une faute professionnelle. Ce n'est pas correct. J'appelle la Commission nationale des droits de l'homme du Burkina Faso, et ça sera Sawadogo, numéro d'affiliation 13. La Commission nationale des droits de l'homme du Burkina Faso.
Ok.
Vous êtes là?
Oui.
D'accord. Vous avez 5 minutes.
Ok. Je suis en train d'ouvrir ça. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et nous vous félicitons pour votre élection, ou votre réélection comme président de la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme. Et nous félicitons également les nouveaux membres du bureau. Nous sommes très fiers d'être ici à Arusha. Donc, au nom de la Commission nationale du Burkina Faso, je m'en vais donc vous livrer le message. C'est pour nous un honneur et un plaisir en tant qu'institution nationale des droits humains de nous adresser à cette auguste assemblée réunie dans le cadre de la 77e session ordinaire de la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples. Permettez-moi d'exprimer ma gratitude et celle de notre institution à la Commission africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples pour l'opportunité offerte à la Commission nationale des droits humains du Burkina Faso de prendre la parole à cette session. La Commission nationale des droits de l'homme du Burkina est une institution nationale indépendante de promotion, de protection et de défense des droits humains, et elle est régie par la loi 01-2016 du 24 mars 2016 portant création d'une Commission nationale des droits humains au Burkina Faso. Cette loi a été modifiée en mars 2021 et qui lui confère le mandat de mécanisme national de prévention de la torture à la Commission nationale des droits humains. Monsieur le Président, distingué délégué, depuis 2015, le Burkina Faso fait face à un défi sécuritaire sans précédent lié à la recrudescence des attaques terroristes perpétrées par des groupes armés, créant ainsi une psychose au sein de la population. À partir de 2021, une résurgence des attaques dirigées a été constatée particulièrement contre les populations civiles et des éléments des forces de défense et de sécurité dans plusieurs régions. Ces différentes attaques donnent lieu à de nombreuses atteintes aux droits humains, notamment les droits à la vie et à l'intégrité physique, le droit à la propriété, la liberté d'aller et de venir, avec pour conséquence la constante augmentation du nombre de personnes déplacées internes. Ainsi, au total, 2,06 millions de personnes déplacées internes ont été enregistrées par le secrétariat permanent du Conseil national de secours d'urgence et de réhabilitation au 31 mars 2023 contre 1,99 million au 28 février 2023, soit une augmentation de 3%. Comparé à mars 2022, on note une augmentation de 12% dans le nombre de personnes déplacées internes enregistrées. Le CONASUR et les autres acteurs humanitaires continuent d'apporter de l'assistance aux personnes déplacées dans les régions d'accueil. En réaction à ces attaques terroristes, le Burkina Faso a engagé des opérations de reconquête et de sécurisation du territoire qui ont permis le retour de certains déplacés internes dans leur village d'origine. Cependant, ces opérations donnent parfois lieu à des allégations de violation des droits humains. La Commission nationale des droits humains a mené des investigations sur ces allégations sur la base des saisines d'organisations de défense des droits humains, de parents et ayants droit des victimes et d'autosaisines. Des rapports d'investigation assortis de recommandations ont été adressés aux autorités compétentes. Monsieur le Président, honorables commissaires, distingués invités, mesdames et messieurs, la liberté d'expression, c'est-à-dire le droit d'exprimer librement ses opinions, fait partie des libertés fondamentales, piliers de notre démocratie. Sa garantie et son respect favorisent l'émergence d'une société ouverte, tolérante et respectueuse de l'état de droit. Au Burkina Faso, la liberté d'expression est garantie par la Constitution en son article 8. Cependant, la situation sécuritaire, conjuguée à l'instabilité politique avec les 2 coups d'État survenus en janvier et en septembre 2022, ont porté un sérieux coup à la liberté d'expression, la liberté de presse et le droit d'accès à l'information au Burkina Faso. Les journalistes et les défenseurs des droits humains en sont les premières victimes. Le 10 août 2023, l'une des radios les plus écoutées au Burkina Faso avait été suspendue par le gouvernement. Pour autant, la lutte contre le terrorisme ne doit en aucun cas servir de prétexte pour restreindre les droits fondamentaux des populations à rechercher et à avoir accès à l'information par le biais des médias et ou à donner leur avis sur la situation nationale. Monsieur le Président, face aux nombreux défis imposés par le contexte politique et sécuritaire au Burkina Faso, la Commission nationale des droits humains recommande à l'État de poursuivre les actions de lutte contre le terrorisme dans le strict respect du droit international des droits de l'homme, du droit international humanitaire et du droit international des réfugiés, de renforcer la prise en charge des personnes déplacées internes, de garantir le respect des droits humains protégés, de garantir la protection et la sécurité des personnels de médias et des membres des gouvernements, des organisations de la société civile. Mesdames et messieurs, distingués invités, la Commission nationale des droits humains estime que la mise en œuvre de ces recommandations permettant au gouvernement de respecter ses engagements internationaux en la matière. Asante kwa umakini wako, je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Merci beaucoup. Nous sommes conscients des changements anticonstitutionnels du gouvernement qu'a connu le Burkina et de toutes les situations auxquelles vous faites face, la lutte contre le terrorisme. Partagez votre note avec le commissaire Idrissa Sow, qui lira encore attentivement et qui prendra des initiatives en collaboration bien évidemment avec vous. Ceci dit, sur la liste des INDH, nous avons appelé tout le monde, sauf que le Kenya et le Bénin, les 2 INDH n'ont pas répondu à l'appel. Je ferme la liste des INDH pour ouvrir celle des ONG. Et maintenant, nous allons appeler les ONG suivantes. Il y en a 10. Et puis on passera à autre chose. Première ONG, the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa. Statut d'observateur 231, j'appelle Oludayo Fabemi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Honorable Chairperson and Commissioners of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, Your Excellencies, Honorable State Party delegates, distinguished colleagues from civil society, all protocols observed. The Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa congratulates the African Commission on Human and People's Rights on the holding of its 77th ordinary session here in the United Republic of Tanzania. The IHRDA is a Pan-African non-governmental organization that promotes the use and effectiveness of the African human rights system, as well as equitable and sustainable development of all Africans. The IHRDA views the African Commission as one of its strongest and closest partners in respect of delivering on our mandate. In this regard, we commend the African Commission for the meaningful work it has been doing since inception on guaranteeing human rights and justice for many individuals and peoples on the African continent. We believe that the Commission has given life to the human rights provisions in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights through its communications procedure, as well as through its development of soft law, among others. In the absence of universal access to all Africans to the African Court on Human and People's Rights, the African Commission, as well as the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, provide human rights dispute resolution mechanisms that many in Africa rely on as their last resort in the quest for justice. It is for these reasons that the IHRDA registers our strong concern over reports that ongoing reforms in the African Union seek to consolidate all the African Union human rights treaty bodies into a single entity. The proposed reforms threaten the effectiveness of the African human rights system. In fact, these reforms, if implemented, will without question have adverse implications, including the loss of a specialized focus, conflicting priorities, bureaucratic challenges, and an overstretched mandate, among other things. Sadly, it will be the end users, fellow Africans, whose rights we collectively work to protect, who will shoulder the impact. Worse still, civil society has not been effectively carried along in the reforms process, thus silencing the voices of the people we collectively serve. To this end, we urge the African Union member states to ensure that the African Union engages in a wide stakeholder consultation that includes civil society and considers the reforms of as it considers the reforms of the African Union, and to strongly reject the proposal to alter the treaty-based mandates of the mechanisms in the African human rights systems. In a similar vein, we also register our strong concerns over the expanded interpretation the African Commission has given to Article 59(1) of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. That article stipulates that actions undertaken by the Commission under the communications procedure are to be kept confidential until authorized for disclosure by the AU heads of state and government. Regrettably, the Commission's interpretation extends this confidentiality to include all related records and legal submissions by involved parties. This expansive interpretation has far-reaching implications for human rights and the participatory role of civil society organizations in ongoing legal proceedings. For instance, while the rules of procedure of the Commission provide for the intervention of third parties and amici curiae, the expanded application of the rules on confidentiality makes it impracticable for will-be interveners to know about the existence of communications that they are interested in. This can have far-reaching and unintended adverse consequences on access to justice. Therefore, we urge the Commission to reconsider its interpretation of this provision and reach a progressive interpretation that is in line with the literal meaning of the provision, which only makes the measures taken by the Commission confidential. We would be remiss not to commend the Commission's effort to enforce compliance with its decisions. However, we're deeply concerned over the ongoing challenges with implementation. The consequences of these challenges are immeasurable as they foster impunity and hinder the Commission's ability to fulfill its mandate of safeguarding and advancing human rights in Africa. As such, we strongly urge the Commission to consider a long overdue, robust follow-up mechanism to ensure implementation of its decisions to strengthen its mandate of protecting human rights in Africa. In closing, we reconfirm our commitment to work in partnership with the Commission and all champions for human rights and development in Africa, and we look forward to continued engagement that will ensure respect for human rights and development for all Africans. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Oludayo, representing the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa, and thank you for keeping to the time. We've taken note of all the issues and concerns you've raised. We want to give you assurance that the Commission will deliberate on them in due course. Thank you very much. We now move to Media Institute of Southern Africa, Observer Status 291. Tabani Moyo, are you here?
Thank you, Honorable Chair and all commissioners. In the first place, Youth and Society, I'd like to commend the Commission for granting us the observer status during its 75th organization, offering us a valuable platform to amplify the voices of the African youth as well as marginalized groups. Honorable Chair, we draw your attention to 4 critical human rights issues concerning Malawi, particularly the refugee situation, civic space, the condition of prisons, as well as death penalty. Honorable Chair, related to the dire refugee situation in Malawi, we express our deep concern about the dire human rights situation faced by refugees and asylum seekers in Malawi. In May 2023, the Malawi government implemented the directive to locate all refugees and asylum seekers, approximately 8,000, from both urban and rural areas of the country to Dzaleka camp. As of October 9, 2023, about 765 families had been located to Dzaleka camp. This location, Your Excellency, has added strain to the already overcrowded Dzaleka camp, which currently accommodates around 52,000 refugees, despite its initial capacity of 12,000 refugees when it was established in 1994. The government's implementation of the refugee encampment policy and ongoing location exercise have been marred by systematic violations, including the rape of women, loss of property, unlawful detention of children and women, forced and unlawful deportations, extortions, xenophobic attacks by authorities, corruption, and robberies targeting refugees and asylum seekers. Your Excellency, you may also wish to know that as of 18th of May 2023, about 505 individuals suspected to be refugees and asylum seekers were detained at Maura prison, including 202 males, 89 females, as well as 117 children. Your Excellency, you find more details in the statement. Regarding the food crisis in prisons, Your Excellency, we are deeply concerned about the food shortages in various prisons across Malawi due to funding challenges of the Malawi Prison Service. In some prisons, Your Excellency, food proportions are unreasonably rationed. In others, inmates go without food for days. Muzuzu, Ncheu, Mulanje, and Zomba prisons, for example, run days. The food shortage has significantly affected the inmates and has serious implications for inmates. For instance, on September 7, 2023, the Malawi police dispersed a peaceful civil society protest with tear gas. In addition to a group allegedly linked to the ruling party, hurling stones at protesters marching to the State House in Lilongwe. Similarly, political activist Mr. Boni Kalindo has repeatedly faced arbitrary arrests for criticizing authorities. The last one, Your Excellency, relates to the abolition of death penalty. That while we commend the government of Malawi for taking steps towards abolishing the death penalty, it's worth noting that it still exists as a competent sentence in line with Section 26 of the Penal Code as read with Section 16 of the Constitution of Malawi. Nevertheless, we are concerned that the repealing of this law is taking too long and unnecessarily so. In view of this, Your Excellency, we make the following recommendations to the Commission. One, the Commission should take a special fact-finding mission to Malawi and investigate the refugee human rights situation. Number two is that we also want the Commission to engage the government of Malawi its obligations. We also urge Malawi government to expedite the review of the country's Refugee Act of 1989. In terms of the prison situation, we call on Malawi government to urgently address the food crisis in the prisons. And finally, Your Excellency, we call on the Malawi government to repeal the amendment, the NGO Amendment Act of 2022, and ensure the respect and protection of freedoms of assembly, association, and expression. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Youth and Society. Yes, we've taken note of the concerns you've raised, ranging from women's rights, refugees, prisoners, freedom of association, human rights defenders, and the death penalty abolition. I think all the commissioners have taken note. and we'll take this into consideration and take note of your recommendations also. Thank you. We move on to the next NGO, which is the Association Observatory. Can you read this for me? De Políticas Públicas de Perspective de Género, is it? Do I have it right? I think it's in Portuguese. Is it? Yeah, it's in Portuguese. It's the NGO. Hermenegildo Teotonio. Are you here? Yes, you are here. Sorry for butchering the name of your NGO, but you're on now. Yeah.
Sim, senhora Presidente, estamos presentes. Excelência, senhor Presidente da Comissão Africana de Direitos Humanos dos Povos, todos os protocolos reservados. Excelência, nos últimos meses, a aprovação de medidas legislativas em Angola tem se agravado com a situação econômica e financeira dos cidadãos e que ditam um maior fechamento do espaço cívico e gerou uma situação de protesto pacífico devido ao impacto nas medidas que tiveram na vida da população e das organizações em geral. O relatório da Associação Cutaquesa revelou que as seguintes preocupações. No dia 25 de maio de 2023, o governo, por via de uma proposta do bancada parlamentar do MPLA, aprovou a proposta de lei que aprova o Estatuto das Organizações Não Governamentais, sem um processo de consulta pública. A referida lei é, para as organizações, um sinal claro de interferência do Poder Executivo nas atividades das associações, através da imposição de restrições excessivas, excessivo controle e desarmonia com a Constituição e os princípios dos direitos humanos. A existência de uma prerrogativa que permite ao governo a extinção por um ato administrativo das organizações e que constitui uma ameaça permanente para as organizações e compromete a sua autonomia, liberdade de associação, continuidade do seu trabalho, da promoção e defesa dos direitos humanos e, consequentemente, contribui para o fechamento do espaço cívico em Angola. No dia 15 de abril, o movimento de estudantes angolanos levaram a cabo uma manifestação pacífica com o objetivo de apelar ao entendimento entre o governo e professores para o fim de uma greve. A manifestação foi prontamente reprimida, tendo colocado como consequência cinco dos promotores detidos sob custódia de uma viatura descaracterizada, entre eles o líder do movimento. No dia 13 de setembro, o movimento jango-cultural de qualquer forma de vitimização, assédio, intimidação e ataque a defensores de direitos humanos, organizações não governamentais, manifestantes pacíficos, líderes e ativistas pró-democráticos através da arbitrariedade policial. Solicitar ao Parlamento angolano que retire o projeto de lei do Estatuto das Organizações Não Governamentais e convocar um processo de consulta ampla com organizações da sociedade civil e garantir que qualquer proposta da nova lei que pretenda regular as associações funcione, não significa um retrocesso e seja orientado pelo espírito de garantia dos direitos e não restrição dos mesmos. Por isso, nós agradecemos a palavra e boa continuação. Obrigado.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective on the human rights situation in Angola, dealing with freedom of expression, human rights defenders, freedom of association. I think these are concerns we've noted, and the mechanisms have, Commissioner's systems for those mechanisms have noted them, and we'll deliberate on those. Thank you. We now move on to the next NGO, Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, Observer Status number 419. You have 5 minutes.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Commissioners, State Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights presents this statement during the 77th Ordinary Session of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. ZLHR welcomes the AECHPR's commitment to addressing human rights situation in rights, commends the government of Zimbabwe's efforts in combating and managing the elevated cholera cases reported in the first half of the year, but calls for more action as the resurgence of some cases is being reported in some other districts, with numbers increasing by day. There is need for the government to revamp the health care system, including by providing adequate equipment. The health sector is under-budgeted, depriving the citizenry of basic health care services. Right to education. The education sector continues to experience a decline, and this can be attributed to the downturn of the Zimbabwean economy. Education has been commercialized as the government has neglected teachers, thus causing an increase in the mushrooming of expensive private schools. Basic education is pegged by government schools by the depreciating exchange rate and hyperinflation, resulting in teachers and lecturers leaving the country in search of better working conditions. Service delivery injury. The law is vaguely crafted and it can be subject to abuse. It carries extremely grave penalties ranging from loss of citizenship, denial of the right to vote, and death penalty. This law is an affront to the freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and association. Arbitrary arrest. ZLHR member lawyers Douglas Cottard and Tapiwa Mchineripi were arrested in the course of discharging their professional duty. The two lawyers were charged with obstructing the course of justice after advising the police that their clients could not give statements to them as they had been sedated while receiving treatment for wounds sustained as a result of torture in the hands of unknown persons. Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights urges the ACHPRA to call on the government of Zimbabwe to amend repressive laws and refrain from introducing new laws restricting rights to assembly, association, expression, free speech, and to peaceful protest. Respect, protect, promote, and fulfill citizens to assembly, right to assembly, association, expression, free speech, and to peaceful protest. Allocate adequate funding and resources for public services, particularly within the education and the health sector. Ratify, domesticate, and adhere to the United Nations International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. Investigate all reports of cases of abductions across the country and provide recourse for all victims and survivors in cases of abductions. Cease arbitrary arrests, malicious prosecutions, and pre-trial detention of human rights defenders for their lawful human rights work. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights. As the country rapporteur for Zimbabwe, I've taken notes, and I'm sure the commissioners responsible for economic and social rights, which have been mentioned, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly and association, arbitrary arrests, and enforced disappearance, have already taken note also. Thank you. We now move on to the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, Kenya, and Observer Status 500. Now you have the floor, legitimately.
Thank you, Honorable Commissioner, for this chance. Honorable Chairperson and other distinguished commissioners, on behalf of the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, Kenya, known as Defenders Coalition, I would like to thank the Commissioner for this opportunity to light some of the key human rights concerns from Kenya. Despite the existence of legal framework in support of HRDs in Africa, which includes Kenya, Defenders Coalition is concerned that the legitimate rule of protection and promotion of human rights carries on by human rights defenders and civil societies is habitually criminalized and remain target of reprisals by both the state and non-state actors, particularly attacks against women human rights defenders, sexual minority activists, environmentalists, and those working on business and human rights issues have escalated. Accountability for this violation remains and says Honorable Chair. The following are a few instances of violation of human rights and fundamental freedom as reported by the Defenders Kenya. 1. Right to life. The prevailing hostile operating environment in Kenya led to murder of 3 HRDs. In April 2023, an activist was killed by the bandits for confronting them about their continuous banditry attacks on neighboring communities. An activist litigating on behalf of the victims of rape and the coercion to sex for the work after the expose by the BBC Africa in one of the Kenyan multinational tea estate was found dead in his home. A sexual minority activist, Edwin Chiloba, was brutally murdered and his body dumped in the metal box by the roadside. Secondly, the situation of human rights defenders. Concerning incidents of crackdown and the criminalization of civil society of HRDs is on the rise. Since January 2023, 3 activists have been killed. 7 of them were arrested, detained, and they are facing trampled up criminal charges in the court of laws. Sexual minority and human rights defenders continue to face untold violence, and the killing of human rights defender Joanna Strache, Elizabeth Ekau, and Sheila Lumumba remain unsolved despite intensified advocacy efforts. The only known arrest following the killing of Elizabeth Ekau. Third, freedom of media and access to information and expression. The situation is worsening what appears as campaign to ripple independence of media. Honorable Chair, the Media Council of Kenya has documented 45 incidents of profiling and 32 individual journalists and media outrage by the politician related to 2020 election in Kenya. By March 23, the Media Council of Kenya listed 25 reporters who were attacked by both members of the public and the state. Fourth, freedom of peaceful assembly and right to protest. Defenders Coalition has documented 61 cases of legal restriction and the criminalization of human rights defenders exercising their freedom of assembly, and arrested and lawfully detained hundreds of citizens for taking part in anti-governmental protests. Human rights defenders and other peaceful protesters are arbitrarily arrested by the police, unlawfully detained for long period, and charged with the trampling of criminal charges beside the brutalization and murder by the security agents. Journalists have also been victims of these assaults. We argue the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to 1. Call on the Kenyan government to earnestly conclude the investigation of murder of Joanna Strache and the finding be made public and the perpetrator prosecuted. Second, call on the Kenyan government to cease arbitrary arrest and the suppression of human rights defenders and civil society organizations who work towards ensuring the promotion and the protection of human rights as is stipulated in the Constitution. The judicial process should not be used as a tool for suppressing CSO and HRDs. Third, come up with a resolution to compel the government of Kenya to ensure safety and security of human rights defenders in Kenya through application of systematical legal provisions that promote and protect human rights, and establish mechanisms that protect human rights defenders, such as the Model Human Rights Defenders Police. Fourth, call on the Kenyan government to implement the direction of the African Court respecting the rights of the Ogiki indigenous people of Mau Forest in Kenya. Failure to implement the judgment continues to subject the community in unnecessary suffering. I humbly submit and thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing the situation of human rights defenders in Kenya. In the country rapporteur of Kenya, together with the Commissioner Rapporteur responsible for human rights defenders, has taken note and will take that into due consideration, and especially with regard to your recommendation. Thank you. We move on to Tanzania Human Rights Defenders Coalition. Nuru Maro, observer status 470. Are you here? Tanzania, you're here. Okay, very well.
Your Excellency, Honorable Chairperson of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, and other delegates, on behalf of the Tanzania Human Rights Defenders Coalition, I wish to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights for convening its 77 sessions here in Tanzania. This has made it easier for Tanzania organizations and people from East African countries to actively participate in this important session, which bring together African human rights defenders and valuable determination of human rights issues. We warmly welcome you all. Most importantly, our deepest gratitude goes to our President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, for cordially accepting our proposal and the responsibility of hosting this important session here in Tanzania. Her decision to host this important session in Tanzania reflects a commitment of our President and other leaders of this nation to regional and international state obligation on the promotion and protection of human rights. Honorable Chairperson, both the President of Zanzibar and the President of Tanzania have shown remarkable commitment to the work with the civil society organization, human rights defenders, particularly in the field of human rights promotion. Our leaders have taken deliberate steps to enhance democratic governance, rule of law, human rights for the last 3 years. Their dedication is evident through initiatives, among others, reform of the criminal justice system, the onset of interest in rejoining the Open Government Partnership, reforms of electoral laws, increasing women participations in decision-making bodies, and historically hosting this 77th session of the African Commission. We also commend and appreciate maximum cooperation accorded to human rights defenders, CSOs, by the Minister of Constitutional and Legal Affairs and Minister of Gender, Women and Community Development. Honorable Chairperson, despite this recommendable effort for the last 3 years, we have noted some challenges and human rights incidents that need to be addressed in Tanzania with the same spirit. Tanzania THRDC remain concerned about the existence of legal framework that undermine the space for civil society organizations, human rights defenders, restriction on freedom of expression, arbitrary arrest, detention, and harassment of journalists, activists, lawyers, and human rights defenders. For instance, in the year 2023, we have recorded 25 new cases of HRDs who were maliciously arrested, and 7 of them were prosecuted to inflict fear among themselves and reduce their morale to protect human rights. Restrictive laws continue to be a hindrance to the work of human rights defenders in this country. Honorable Chairperson, despite our substantial recommendations and those from your own commission for the government of Tanzania to apply human rights-based approaches, including wider participation of the community, relocation and demarcation of the Loliondo village land remains a main source and concern of human rights violation among the pastoralist communities in Tanzania. As a result of this, the ongoing situation in Ngorongoro, many pastoralists, HRDs, and local activists live in fear because of the threat and the intimidation and harassment targeted to them because of their involvement on this matter. Our effort to engage the government for dialogues while standing between the people of Ngorongoro and the government have proved a failure in many times. Additionally, human rights defenders in Tanzania have no legal protection mechanism because we do not have a specific law or policy that recognizes and protects human rights defenders in this country. Therefore, as we are celebrating 25 years of the UN Declaration of Human Rights Defenders, it is not enough to merely celebrate these principles, but we need action, including having this law in place. Honorable Chairperson, in light of the above observation, we human rights defenders from Tanzania call upon the African Commission and the People's Rights at these 77 sessions to, among other things, to address urgent issues affecting human rights defenders and human rights issues in Tanzania as follows. We advise the government of Tanzania to prevent and seize continual repressions, harassment, arrest, and malicious persecution of human rights defenders. We urge the government of Tanzania to see the need of adopting human rights defenders model policy and enactment of law that recognizes and protects human rights defenders. Ensure that arrests are conducted based on legitimate legal grounds, adhering to the due process, preventing arbitrary arrest and detention, and initiate investigation to hold accountable individuals responsible for arbitrary arrest and detention. We urge the government of Tanzania to complete the work we started. The work started to improve, strengthen human rights system, good governance, multi-party democracy, including completion of the process of creating an independent electoral commission. We reiterate our last year's call on urging the government of Tanzania to speed up the process of restoring the process of making the new constitution based on people's recommendation. We urge the government of Tanzania to promote human rights, education, awareness, particularly within law enforcement agencies, government bodies, and rural public.
Are you wind up? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm wind up, 1 minute. We also call the government of Tanzania to form a special committee involving both state and non-state actors to advise the government of Tanzania on the best way to protect the nature without violating the right of villagers, as well as without ignoring their traditional knowledge on conservation. Lastly, we call upon you, your commission, to conclude the report that you prepared 6 months ago here in Tanzania about the situation of human rights in Ngorongoro. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the country rapporteur of Tanzania has taken note of the issues raised regarding the commendable initiatives, which is quite balanced, recognizing the good that has been done, and of course we're very grateful for the hosting arrangement that has been done, and very, very thankful for all the warm welcome, but at the same time recognizing some of the limitations and restrictions which are noted relating to freedom of expression, arbitrary arrest, and freedom of assembly. These are noted, so Commissioner will take note. Thank you. We now move on to the strategic initiative for women in the Horn of Africa, Network SIHA, Observer Status 433. Faizat,
yes,
are you here?
Yes, I am. Honorable Chairperson, Commissioners, State Delegates, representatives from human rights organizations, and all concerned with the state of women's rights in Africa, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this occasion by presenting the following statement. I'll quickly say that the Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn of Africa, SIHA Network, is a network created by women rights activists with over 100 members, organizations operating in politically volatile context of the Greater Horn of Africa. For the past 25 years, we've held the unique position of conducting research and advocacy while working as feminist regional civil society organization. Over the past year, the Horn of Africa has been plagued with multiple conflicts, insecurity, environmental shocks, political upheaval, and shrinking civil space. Today, we would like to focus our statement on Somalia and Sudan. In these two countries, women have found themselves increasingly targeted by sexual violence and numerous other forms of human rights abuses. We call on the African Commission to expand every possible effort towards convincing Sudan and Somalia to sign and ratify the Maputo Protocol without reservations and hold the two member states accountable to their commitments to African women as parties to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. In Sudan, amid the increasing conflict, political unrest, and environmental challenges, Sudan has drawn the attention due to the concerning human rights violations. The actions of both the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, have deeply troubled our collective sense of justice. These offenses include extrajudicial killing, forced disappearance, and most tragically, widespread sexual violence disproportionately affecting Sudanese women and girls. They have endured these horrors in a lawless environment where suffering often goes unaddressed. Despite numerous reports, there is palpable lack of acknowledgement from involved parties, leading to an alarming decline in civilian protection. With a health system disseminated by conflict, survivors face compounding suffering, with many of them becoming victims of unpunished sexual violence. SIHA has documented 115 cases of SGBV to date, but we believe that the actual number of cases is drastically higher than the cases that we have documented. The prevalence and nature of these crimes are evident in our documented cases, particularly from regions like Darfur, where the extent of the war crimes remains concealed due to the stronghold of the RSF. The legal framework of Sudan remains indifferent, perpetuating a culture of impunity. It is time to address this systemic failure, to hold those responsible to account, and to pave way for just, stable, and inclusive Sudan, where the rights of women and girls are non-negotiable. In Somali, amid the broader challenges in the Horn of Africa, Somali stands at a crossroads. The nation's outdated legal system, based on 1960s interland penal law, faces significant limitation in addressing contemporary issues, such as evolving forms of sexual and gender-based violence. While laws exist on paper, their implementation remains woefully deficient, largely owing to the overlap of customary Sharia and formal legal system. This has resulted in escalating incidents of sexual and gender-based violence with alarming number of perpetrated not only by militias like Al-Shabaab, but also disheartening by the very forces meant to protect the populace. A report by our partner organization, Somali Women Development Center, shows that in 2021, there were 2,176 SGBV cases, again reported, but we know that unreported is usually more. And then in 2022, 2,343, showing a 7.7 increase. But what is worse is in Somaliland, the National Human Rights Commission documented 580 cases, rape cases in 2022. 66% of those cases involve girls under the age of 18. This makes a 308% increase in reported cases, rape cases, compared to the previous year. Alarmingly, only 28% of those cases were addressed within the formal legal system. The challenge lies in the categorization of family law cases as civil matters, often leading to the resolution through mediation or under Sharia or customary law practice. I will skip the part about the sexual offenses bill, which is also pretty important, but it's part of my recommendations, so I'll go straight to the recommendations. We therefore conclude this statement with the following recommendations for the African Union, for the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. On Sudan, we ask that to apply increased pressure on the de facto government of Sudan to implement an immediate ceasefire throughout the country, ensuring that humanitarian aid reaches those in need, combined with a short and long-term transitional process towards a peaceful and stable democratic governance system.
Your time, can you round up?
Okay, I'll round up real quick. Second is that the African Charter on People's Rights, Convention on Torture and Other Cruel, Degrading Punishment, amend the Criminal Act and Criminal Procedure, amend the National Intelligence Security and Service Military Forces Act. In Somalia, we are asking that the government of Somalia enact a sexual offenses bill, which has been as long promoted by women's rights, end impunity for agents of security apparatus, subject the perpetrators of sexual violence to statutory court ruling rather than customary, and then lastly, implement an immediate ceasefire in Lesser Nord and develop mechanisms that equally include women in the transition of peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing the situation in the Greater Horn of Africa, especially Somalia and Sudan. I think as the counterpart of Somalia, I've taken note, and the counterpart of Sudan, Commissioner Hatem, also taken note, and we're monitoring the situation there. We've taken note of the recommendations that we've made. We move on to Kenya Legal and Ethical Issues Network on HIV and AIDS. Orlando Obondo, observer status 499. Are you here? Orlando Obondo? No? Okay, then we move on to Legal and Human Rights. Observer status 244, Dr. Anna Henger.
Thank you.
Yes.
Your Excellence, Honorable Chairperson of the Commission, and the Honorable Commissioners, sharing this statement on behalf of the Legal and Human Rights Center, Tanzania. Honorable Chairperson, I'd like to share human rights situation in Tanzania. Our observation is divided into 4 parts, which are civil and political rights, economic, social and cultural rights, protection of women and children, and protection of human rights in the business sector. On civil and political rights, Tanzania has continued to embrace human rights through several initiatives, as committed by President Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. But however, there are minimal consideration on reforming the Basic Rights and Duties Enforcement Act, which restricts access to justice through public interest litigation, because the law requires a person who wants to file public interest litigation to show and prove on how he or she is personally affected by a claimed act or omission by the state. Furthermore, Tanzania still uphold her decision to withdraw the right of individuals and CSO to directly access the African Court on Human and People's Rights and Article 34, Sub-Article 6 of the protocol. As part of our ongoing commitment to this cause, we would like to implore for Tanzania to redeposit a declaration under that article. This declaration is a powerful tool in the promotion of human rights, providing access to justice for individuals and communities across the continent. Tanzania is approaching to the local government and the general elections in 2024 and 2025. Still, there are constitutional challenges on independence of the Electoral Commission, which raises concern and allegation of a absence of free and fair election. On socioeconomic cultural rights, Tanzania comments, LHRC comments the decision by Tanzania to uplift restrictive ban to pregnant schoolgirls to access education and the right